I know my own heart and understand my fellow man, but I am made unlike anyone I have ever met. I dare to say I am like no one in the whole world. Welcome to an extraordinary evening. It's not often that we gather so many women together, and certainly not in one of our city's most prestigious venues. My name is Dr. Anna Rutherford, some of you may know me. I run Indigo, an organisation that celebrates the achievements and friendships of women, and I founded Pride here in Bristol. Before we begin, I would just like to thank some brilliant partners that have made tonight happen. So thank you to Bristol Festival of Ideas, to Bristol Old Vic, to UE, and to the Royal Television Society for their support. I would also like to take a moment to thank my co-conspirator. So I mentioned Pride because back in 2010, we programmed a certain folk duo for our first major Pride here, in fact, just round the corner at Castle Park. And we've stayed in touch ever since. So a special thank you to Belinda O'Hooley for helping to share the story of Gentleman Jack with Bristol this evening. So now to tonight. The appearance of Gentleman Jack on our screens is a cultural landmark for women, for society, and for us queers. An extraordinary woman who's been brought to life by so many other exceptional women. And it is a huge honour to have many of them with us here tonight. Sally Wainwright is a writer, producer and director from Yorkshire. Winner of multiple BAFTA awards, Sally created her first original drama series in 2000 at home with the Braithwaites. She won the Royal Television Society's Writer of the Year award in 2009 for Unforgiven. And since 2012, she has created a succession of BAFTA-winning, game-changing dramas with Last Tango in Halifax, To Walk Invisible, Happy Valley, and of course, Gentleman Jack. Sally brings ingenious northern women to millions of screens. Joining Sally this evening is Anne Choma, a writer and historical researcher specialising in the life and times of Anne Lister, and she's worked very closely as Wainwright's advisor to the BBC drama Gentleman Jack, and she's author of the accompanying book, which I highly recommend, which you can grab a copy of later if you're quick. Finally, I will hand over now for the evening to our chair, Dr. Finn McKay. Finn is a long-standing feminist writer, activist and researcher currently investigating lesbian masculinities. She wanted me to tell you that she's also a senior lecturer at the best university in Bristol, which is, of course, UE. And Finn lives in Bristol with her wife, her son and 2 cats. So please join me in welcoming Sally, Anne and Finn to the stage.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen jacks. Here we are in this, I think that Anne Lister would approve of this amazing venue, and welcome to this Anne Lister event, convention, whatever you might like to call it. I only came here to audition for Oliver, so I don't know how I ended up here now. Now I find myself in this hotbed of intrigue, all about lesbian secret code. So we're here, we've been brought here to honour Anne Lister, Yorkshire, businesswoman, of course, general lass about town in the 1820s and 1830s. Prolific diarist, as we know. She documented everything then. So gossip, wine orders, sort of like an early version of Instagram. But 5 million words worth of that. And her diaries are recognised as one of the longest social commentaries ever written, and they're recognised by UNESCO as a document of international significance. Yes. So, here we are. So I'll start then with these 2 extraordinary women that we have here, lucky enough to have here with us tonight. So tell me, like, what's the story? How did it all begin? How do you two know each other? Have you had this in mind for a long time?
Well, I started working on, well, I came across Anne Lister in the late 90s. And as soon as I'd heard about it before that, because I grew up in Halifax. So I'd always visited Shibden from being tiny. So I knew Shibden really well. And I honestly can't remember the first time I heard her name. I really haven't, I've been asked that so many times, and I absolutely do not know. It's one of, it's a mystery to myself that I don't know the first time I heard her name. But I became aware of her during the 1990s. I hadn't heard of Helena's books. Helena published in 1988, and that went under my radar, sadly.
This is Helena Whitbread.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I only really had a huge hit of who she was when I read Jill Liddington's book, Fear My Fortune. And as soon as I read that book, I just knew I wanted to do something about this. At that time, I was writing Coronation Street. And so...
bit of a wrong era.
Yeah. So I was doing quite well, but I wasn't, quite as... I wasn't high profile enough to just go to anyone and say, I want to write about Anne Lister. Which I'm quite pleased about now that it didn't happen then. But I worked up a treatment and I pitched it in 2003. The first time I pitched it was about 2002, 2003. And, nobody was interested.
Oh, really?
And then what happened? How did we meet each other? Oh, well, around that time, I'd met Helena through desperately trying to find out anything and everything I could about Anne. And Helena initiated this project, which I think we called the PCP project. And it was an attempt, that was the name of the publisher who she was going to pitch it to, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a project that we had in mind to try and transcribe the whole of Anne's diaries.
Right.
And
so we all had a year each.
Yeah, it was this kind of...
There was about 6 of us, weren't there?
Very naive of us at the time, I think, to think we could actually achieve that.
I don't think it was.
About 1 million words each, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's doable.
I actually went away and I actually took a load of letters and I started transcribing those. But we met in 2002, Sally and I, and it was through that project. And we both realised very quickly that we were Anne Lister obsessives. And that was never
I think you're amongst friends.
Yeah. That was just never going to change.
Yeah.
And I think it's stayed the course for for the 17 years that I've known Sally. It's just fantastic that we've come together to work on this. And Sally's talking about her career makes me sound really boring because I've not got anything as exciting to say. But I got to know about the diaries through Helena Whitbread. Right. And effectively, I would say I was Helena's apprentice to a degree because she was so generous in sharing information with me. And we spent a lot of time together. In fact, Helena and I went to Paris and we did a lot of research together. Oh. And we did lots of recceing of where Anne stayed between 1824 and 1826. So, it was very quick that I just knew Anne Lister was a life-changing impact for me. And I'll never forget the first morning that I turned up at Shibden Hall and having had, seen Helena's book, and it was just such a momentous occasion. But we've continued to be friends ever since, and as I say, this is it's been a very, very special experience working on Gentleman Jack.
And you were saying that the story has just resonated with you personally, resonated and gets into your heart, and obviously it has done with so many people.
Yeah, I can quite understand. I can really understand what people are feeling now. Same for Sally. When I came to it 25 years ago, I can just remember the impact that Anne Lister had on me as a gay woman and struggling with my sexuality and not quite having the confidence to voice what I was feeling. I just, when I got hold of the diaries and I started to read them, it was just life-changing. So I can completely understand people's obsession now with Anne Lister, who are just coming to her for the first time, having watched Gentleman Jack.
And did you have to have white gloves? I mean, are they precious?
Do you know, actually, in the early days, it was much easier to actually have access to the diaries. I mean, I could go into the archives in Halifax, and I could order to see the diaries very easily. I mean, they were on microfilm then, but you could still ask. Many occasions I was with Helen and would be working and looking at the original diary just for a short period of time, and then they'd go back. But yeah, when I think of all those kind of like lonely afternoons in the archives, trying to work my way through this really, really bizarre writing, it's just very, really nice memories.
And it's all worth it now. It's materialised into this, of course. So you've been wanting to do it for a while. Tell us about, was that an easy pitch then? Did you just go in one day and say, right, I want to make a series about lesbians in the 1830s, let's go for it. And it was fun. Because you said at first people didn't want anything to do with it. So
I think originally, when I first pitched it in 2003, it was a hard pitch because I wasn't, my profile wasn't particularly high. I'd done the Braithwaites, which had been successful, but it wasn't, I wasn't somebody who could just walk in and say, this is what I'm doing next. And so I had other things going on. I had other projects that were cropping up, and but Anne Lister was always there on a back burner. She never went away. Mm-hmm. And then I think after Happy Valley, which was very successful, that was when Charlotte Moore, who's the controller of the BBC, said to me, "What do you want to do next?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, I've got 5 ideas." And she said, "Which one do you want to do most?" And I said, "Well, I've always wanted to write about Anne Lister." Mm. And she said, "Well, we'll do that then."
Wow.
And then she said, "Who's Anne Lister?"
So that's certainly changed, and nobody would say that now.
Yeah. So no, it was a very easy pitch.
Right.
And of course, it got easier when I did explain exactly who Anne Lister was.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I know, exactly. I mean, she's such an intriguing character.
It's interesting actually what Anne's just said. When I first discovered just who she was, I mean, I'd heard the name for a while. I loved Shibden. I already loved Shibden deeply, even before I knew about Anne Lister. But when I discovered who she was, I'd grown up there. I'd grown up in Halifax. And like a lot of people, you grow up in your hometown, you just think is a dump. and you can't wait to leave. Mm. And I couldn't wait to leave because I thought I wanted to work in telly. And I thought if you wanted to work in telly, you have to go and live in London. Mm. And Halifax is the back of beyond. And then when I discovered Anne Lister, it was like my hometown suddenly became this magical place to me. And she does have this profound effect on you. And I've never gone back from that. I still think Halifax is magical now. It's like I have this unhealthy relationship with my hometown now. I actually like it,
And I mean, my introduction to Anne Lister actually, meant that I ended up moving there. Wow. And, I live in the Shibden Valley, and it's not a moment I regret.
You're just immersed. It's just she's there all around you.
Completely.
So on the series, I mean, I'm sure we all want to know about how you cast the roles, and in particular how, Suranne Jones came to play the lead. So we do have some clips we're going to show tonight. So we have clip 1, which is the intro where Suranne is first introduced. If we could play that.
Good God.
You help this man down. Struck a pothole. The driver was torn from his seat and his arm was dislocated and shattered.
Well then, Mom, it's lucky you were there to step in.
No one else seemed disposed to rise to the occasion. I had no intention of arriving home any later than necessary. How are you, Ruth?
Well, Mom, thank you.
That was a reckless undertaking, madam.
All were given the opportunity to alight and walk. Get my trunk. Eugénie, ça va mieux. This is Eugénie.
Oh. How do?
Quand j'étais prise comme femme de chambre, Tessa m'a dit que tu supportais bien les voyages. Must be my driving. Never mind. Booth! I'm off. I've been in Icarus. I've flown too near the sun. And now I crash back to Earth at Shibden. Shabby little Shibden. And my shabby little family.
So Anne lives in that valley?
Yes, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see Anne's Gothic library tower from where I live, so it's really nice.
It's a room with a view. So there's a leading gentlewoman there. So did you always have Saran Jones was the one? Did you see it in advance?
No, I've worked with Saran a lot. She's played the lead in 3 things I've written previously. I couldn't see Anne Lister in my mind's eye. I knew too much about her. And so anyone I could think, I was thinking like Kate Blanchett, no. Kate Winslet, no.
What about a ginger? She could have been ginger. Because that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't see her. I couldn't imagine anybody who could be everything that I felt Anne Lister was. She was such a polymath. She was so clever. She was so everything, and she was so mercurial. So as soon as you've described 10 things about her, you think of 10 things that contradict all that. So to actually imagine one person. I remember somebody saying to me, "But forget actors, just anyone. Who can you think of who's like Anne Lister?" And I just couldn't. It was like you teased out of thought because she's too magnificent. So it was quite odd, really. It was an odd situation to be in because when I write, usually I have someone in mind, and it helps me write if I can picture someone and other mannerisms. So it was a really curious position to be in where I was. Sorry, I can hear feedback. Can you hear me properly? All right. Sorry? You can't hear me?
A bit louder.
Can you hear me now?
Can we get it a bit louder on Sally's?
We sure can. So, is this all right? Can you hear me now?
Yeah? Everyone happy? Yeah? You done here? On you go. Everyone needs to be louder. Can we get some levels?
Can you hear me?
A bit louder for people at the back. And people up there. We've got people up high here. It's like Bristol, you've got all directions and up.
Great.
So, yeah.
So can you hear me now? Yes. Great. So, my executive producer, Faith Penhale, said to me, we do have to cast somebody at some point. And
sorry to interrupt, Sally, but every other phone call I got from Sally while she was writing was like, I just need to see Anne Lister. I just wish I could get a vision of her in my head.
Conjure something.
Yeah.
I kept hoping she'd appear to me. I used to wander around Shibden Hall when it was closed, hoping I could see a ghost. Just for like 5 seconds would have been all right. But I just don't think I'm sensitive. It's a paranormal phenomenon.
During filming, she did tap you on the shoulder.
Oh, she did, yeah, she tapped me on the shoulder.
She tapped Sally on the shoulder.
That's what Anne Lister does, she taps you on the shoulder. Apparently, according to Cat Humor.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we were filming one day, and we were filming down, those of you who've been to Shibden, the hall is up there, and then the mere, the lake, is down at the bottom. And we were filming halfway between the two. It's the scene where she's digging up trees with John Booth. And I was standing about a metre away from my first assistant, Nathan, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and went like that. And I went, was that you? And he goes, what? And it wasn't him. It could have been my bra strap. But anyway, so Faith said, we're going to have to cast somebody at some point. And so we looked at leading actresses who were 40 in England, and there were like 3. And we sent the script to the 3 of them. And they all wanted to do it. One didn't turn up.
Gosh. Who was that? They'll
I
be
can't
kicking
tell you.
themselves now.
I'm not ever going to tell anyone. Saran came in, and we also had to read. We had to ask them to read. You wouldn't normally ask someone of Saran's stature to read. You would just make an offer. And we had to ask them to read because of HBO. HBO weren't as familiar with their work as we are. Right. So we had to ask them to read. We had to record it so that we could send it to HBO so they could approve. And Saran came in, and obviously I know Saran really well anyway. But even still, she blew my mind with what she did that day. She'd been at Buckingham Palace in the morning. I think she'd been like, I don't know what she'd been doing. Something to do with handing out honours. Not her. I don't know if they invite celebrities along to. I've never been.
Queen's not good enough these days. We have Saran Jones.
Anyway, for whatever reason, she'd been at Buckingham Palace, and she was like very well dressed, and she'd got high heels on, and she immediately came in and said, I can't wear high heels to do this. And she was, she just immediately did something extraordinary. She just knocked it out of the park, as we like to say, lazily. She brought something I felt I'd just never seen her do before. I thought I'd seen everything she could do because I knew her well, and I hadn't. And she just instinctively got the character on a really deep, emotional, joyous level. She brought this joyous physicality to it straight away. When she talks about her now, she says there was a lot of work for me to do. There was a long way for me to go before I became Anne Lister. But she underestimates what she brought into the room that day. It was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal experience just being there with her and just thinking, oh my God, she can do it. She can do it. Somebody gets how multifaceted Anne Lister was. Somebody gets how brilliant she was. Somebody gets all these extraordinary, contradictory, brilliant aspects of her character. She's so strong, and yet she's so she's mercurial. As I say, as soon as you choose one adjective to describe, you think, oh yeah, but then she did this, this, and this. And that's why it's quite a hard show to write. It's really hard to pin her down and to really express who she was. So it was just a joyous day when Saran came in and did that, because I could see Anne Lister.
At last.
I saw the tape of the audition. Sally sent me the tape of the audition, and before I got the tape, I had 2 lists, and one was like pros and one was cons, and I didn't have anything to write down on the cons side. It was all just so brilliantly positive after seeing that tape. And the other actress who auditioned was equally as brilliant. But Saran just had something very, very special.
And so that was it? You decided just on that first reading, that was it? She got the job?
Yeah, it was really clear.
Yeah.
It was a really clear choice, yeah.
And all the costuming, in that clip that we saw, when she comes down, it's a part of the show, isn't it? How accurate was that, to the actual diaries? Is that how she would have looked? Did you do a lot of research?
Yeah, Tom Pye, who's our costume designer, is a really, really brilliant man he's done a lot of theatre, he's done a lot of opera, he works all around the world, he's in Sydney at the moment, he often works in New York. So we talked a lot about how to present Anne Lister. So clearly there's a lot of evidence in the journal about what she wore, a huge amount of detailed evidence about what she wore. But we had to make choices about how to present her to a modern audience. We had to show a modern audience how unusual she was. We live in a world where we can dress like we want, and nobody really bats an eyelid. We all dress. Most of us dress pretty androgynously these days, and you can be as eccentric as you like, and it's kind of acceptable. It's very acceptable. In those days, clothes were very rigid. There were very rigid rules. You know, there was no mistaking a man and a woman in terms of costume in those days. So the way she dressed in real life probably wasn't as shocking as to us as it would have been at the time.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to accentuate that difference for a modern sensibility. So we don't think she wore a top hat, although I've just read a bit where she's buying a top hat.
For riding. There's always something new in the diaries to surprise you, and this is what's really strange.
We had a conversation about this the other day. In the January of 1834, she ordered a hat from Jubbs.
Jubbs, yeah.
Jubbs.
She talks about buying, talks about buying a Dunstable bonnet. Does anybody know what a Dunstable bonnet is? And then last week I was doing some transcription and I discovered something that I'd never seen before, and that when she was out walking she wore a bandeau, so it was like a bandana. And when she bumped into somebody very, very posh one day, she was really embarrassed, but she had her bonnet, her travelling bonnet with her, and so she quickly turned around and put the bonnet on her so that she couldn't be seen in this bandana. So there's something, something really, really you know, interesting to find that makes you think again about what yours thought was true.
Because I thought the top hat was a real clear... I thought we were taking poetic license in order to convey to a modern audience just how different she would have been at the time. But then she does buy this... It's like a dressage hat. Right. So it's a sort of shorter hat.
version.
But at the time, she's not riding any horses. So why is she buying a...
She's preparing herself. She's preparing herself for all these horses that she's going to be buying with Anne Walker.
Just for the style?
Yeah, but she doesn't. She buys a pony. Anne Walker buys a pony.
Yeah.
But Anne Lister doesn't.
It's 10 years since in
And
18...
then when she goes up, they didn't get up Mont Blanc, but they went into the foothills. She was wearing a straw boater, did you see
That's
that?
right, yeah. And then when she's travelling in Paris, she talks about wearing a calèche, which is like a peaked hat. And she was mistaken for a man 3 times when she was in Strasbourg wearing one of these hats.
A calèche?
A calèche or a calèche, does anybody know?
It was a carriage, a calèche.
No.
Oh.
Anyway, something French.
Don't know,
wearing something French.
Oh, this is... Can you hear me? Is this all right? Can you read about this?
She very rarely talks about wanting to dress as a man. I've come across one diary extract recently where it's very, very revealing. And she's travelling in a carriage with Mariana Lawton. And Mariana says, "I'm bored of this." She said, "We're travelling so slowly." And Anne Lister says it's because of the way we're dressed, we're ladies. And at that point she says, "I think I'll dress as a gentleman." And then they start laughing. And then more seriously, then Anne Lister says, "I'm bored with womanhood, but would I be happier in any other state than the one she's currently in, and the way she's dressed and the way she's feeling?" She kind of asked herself this rhetorical question: should you be something other than she is? And would dress help? That was in 1831.
And that's, those kind of nuances, identity debates are so current today. And I'm sure we can, we can come on to that in more detail. You're saying, what sort of things she talked about. She was clearly an accomplished businesswoman. That was very important to her. Quite mercenary, perhaps, in her business dealings, or I don't know. We can see, we've got another clip where we can see her in action, I believe, where she's debating some prices for coal with one of the Rawson brothers. I think that's clip 2, if we could have that.
Oh, here she is.
Miss Lister.
Mr. Rawson, sorry I kept you waiting.
Not at all.
So many jobs on hand around the estate, and I do like to keep an eye on the men. What can I do for you?
I understand you're leasing out your coal, and if that is the case, my brother and I would like to ask you how much you'd take for it.
What will you offer?
Oh, you must set the price, madam.
Per acre?
Yes, I would be.
£226, 17 shillings and 6pence.
Sorry?
Per acre.
That's ridiculous.
It isn't. I asked Mr. Holt, the coal agent. He advised me it was worth 200 an acre.
Well, even that's pretty steep.
I asked him to calculate how much it cost you to get your coal and then how much it sold for, which he did. But I think he got his calculations wrong. Either that or he was trying to dupe me. I think he underestimated me, Mr. Orson, with me being the gentler sex, which I know is something you and your brother won't do.
The price you have named is with respect.
Ridiculous? It isn't. Let me explain why. You sell your coal down in Halifax at 8p per core.
It's actually 7p.
I asked a number of people who buy it from you. No one said 7p.
Some we sell at 8p, yes.
So I'm reliably informed that the cost of getting and hurrying to the surface 20 cores of coal is 6 shillings. That's 72p divided by 20. That's 3p halfpenny per core, which means you make 4p halfpenny clear gain per core. Now let's times that by 5. And we have 1 shilling, 10p halfpenny, or 22p per square yard. 4,840 square yards in an acre times 22, and your clear gain is £453.15 per acre. Now, if the getter and the proprietor were to share their profits equally, which again I'm told is the custom, that divides into £226, 17 shillings and 6p.
We never make that kind of profit, Miss Lister.
Well then, I suggest you look narrowly into it, because I could.
Don't underestimate the lesbian at your peril, the lesbian businesswoman. So how accurate was that? Did she drive a hard bargain?
Absolutely.
That was word for word.
Totally
Really?
accurate from
That
the
was
diary.
straight out of the journal.
Really?
And what's really interesting about that clip is that the morning that Jeremiah Orson actually came to Shibden Hall, she was so cool. She was mending her stockings. She'd done all the prep work.
She prepped the night before.
Yeah, she prepped the night she needed to, the night before. So she was completely ready for Jeremiah Orson when he came. She'd got out old coal plans. She'd consulted with James Holt. She knew what she was about, and she knew what her coal was worth. And actually, when Jeremiah Orson left that morning after having had that discussion, and Lister writes in her diary, the price frightened him. He went away feeling frightened.
And did she get her deal? Did she?
No, it never quite worked. It was. It's a bit of a shaggy dog story. This is really interesting, actually, with the journals. Often, she wasn't writing a story. It wasn't a dramatic narrative. So often stories crop up and we're thinking, oh, great, this is going to be really good. And then nothing happens. We were just talking about that this morning because there's a story in Series 2 where a character comes in and moves in with Aunt Anne Walker at Cliff Hill. And at the time, it's terrible for Anne Walker. Yes. Anne Walker's really upset about this. And it's like, oh my God, this is really dramatic. And then she don't mention her again. It's like, thanks.
Doesn't really go anywhere in the diary, does it?
So we have to make things up.
Yeah. So they're the really exciting moments when I'm working with Sally, is when we're talking about storylines, and when Sally will give me something to work on, and then I'll go away and I'll try and work on it, and I'll come up with some ideas and do some further research, and then we decide actually it's not going anywhere, and so then Sally's brilliant imagination kicks in. But there's always something, a grain of truth in whatever.
We found out something really exciting yesterday.
We did.
Dum dum dum.
Because
Are we giving a spoiler though?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Don't tell anyone. In the October of 1834, Anne Walker's moved into Shibden Hall, and this guy called James Ingham turns up. Oh, I can't tell you. I'm going to...
I kind of think you might have given it away, actually. We have, people transcribing diaries now out there. So.
But what was really exciting, so I won't spoil it, I won't tell you what happened, but we found a connection with the Brontes, which... Well,
we did, a really exciting connection. It's tenuous, but it's there.
I mean, there are a number of connections between Anne Lister and the Brontes, because Emily Bronte taught at Low Hill School, which is less than a mile away from Shibden Hall. So Emily Bronte was teaching at Low Hill in the winter of 1839.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth Patchett was the headmistress of Low Hill School. And Anne Lister and Elizabeth Patchett knew each other really well. Mm-hmm. So Emily Bronte would know very clearly who Anne Lister was, because she was a big personality in the area. Mm-hmm. Anne Lister wouldn't have had a clue who Emily Bronte was, because she was a teaching assistant at Law Hill who never spoke to anyone. The Wuthering Heights, the house Wuthering Heights is based on High Sunderland, which is very near where Anne lives, which is now demolished, High Sunderland. But it was a very eccentric house, very near Shibden Hall, which Emily Bronte clearly saw because she described, the opening pages of Wuthering Heights describe High Sunderland to a T. The rude little boys. You can see the rude little boys. They're stone carved figures of little boys.
And they're now at
Shibden. And they're now at Shibden. When High Sunderland was demolished, they took the rude little boys and dumped them in the backyard at Shibden, and they're in the backyard at Shibden. Which is extraordinary, isn't it? The connection with the Brontes.
It is. I mean, that was very exciting what we found yesterday. But
you're just teasing us now with all these things to come. And what was it like? You know, being on the set. What was it like filming it? I mean, you said you felt visitations. You know, you felt her presence, and all you extraordinary women together.
I think every day there wasn't one single day that passed when I personally thought we are so lucky to be here. You know, we were filming in a house. You know, Saran several times, many times would say, "I can't believe I'm in a house. I'm sitting in a dining table, pretending to, you know, eat food in the room that she ate food in. I'm saying lines that we know she probably said some approximate version of." And it was, but it wasn't spooky. It was good. It was like, it was uplifting. You know, it was a really good shoot. It was a fantastic team. Nothing went wrong. Every day I felt like we were blessed. You know, I know it sounds sentimental, but we did feel like she was smiling down on us.
every day was joyous. And I mean, we were blessed with the weather. You know, for Yorkshire, we had the most amazing weather as well. And so, you know, these fantastic Calderdale landscapes were just shone beautifully.
I remember Phil, the producer, saying, everybody's going to think Yorkshire's like Tuscany.
Like the sun shines all the time in Yorkshire.
Saran must have been overheating a bit, like striding around in her greatcoats and many layers.
Yeah, and she wore ice packs on her back.
Yeah, and she had to get the corset adjusted. I think she ended up wearing a sort of operatic corset that's got a lot more give around here, so you can breathe. But I think they all struggled. I mean, those costumes, I don't know how they did it. I mean, it's just, you know, every time you went, everybody looks about 10 feet taller when they've got a corset on. So I'm standing there like this going, oh. Yeah, I mean, I think it was, there was some, I don't know how they did it. It was quite extraordinary. I mean, they are very well looked after. I think they get fans and things.
A few fans, historical fans. You've talked about her dress and how you had to make her look different, and she's often referred to as the first modern lesbian, and obviously she was lesbianing around with other women though, so you wonder, you know, just a little bit, if maybe there's some slight, obviously she's the one that wrote it down, but maybe there's some slight sexism there, and we kind of overlook, you know, the one that was the wife character. And obviously she wrote it down, but she also expressed her difference, as you've said, and you tried to be true to that, and just, you've mentioned how actually shocking it was, how different she was at that time. And I think the last clip that we've got actually shows her going into a bar and soldiers running out, basically, to all intents and purposes, and her sort of matching them at their own game, really. If we could play clip 3.
I bet you don't read at the breakfast table when you're at Langton with the Norcliffes. Or when she's staying at Lawton Hall with Mrs. Lawton. Or when you were in Hastings with Miss Hobart.
You're quite right, Marion. Of course.
I am anxious that the whole thing hasn't been properly addressed.
Sorry, the whole thing?
Anne has assured me that in future, if she decides to stay out later than usual, she'll write us a note or tell us in advance.
It was only 10 o'clock when she came in, though, wasn't it?
If we'd known to expect her at 10 o'clock, this would be a very different conversation.
You see, you've heard about people who get knocked about and robbed.
As it was.
And worse.
As it was.
She used to come in at all hours.
I had Cardingley and Hemingway poised on the verge of going out looking for her.
I found her once at a lodging house in Halifax at 3 in the morning, playing cards.
Too
A
easy.
bunch of reprobates from the 33rd.
Good Lord. That was a while since.
Perhaps you'd like to apologise to the servants for keeping them up.
I'm not apologising to my own servants. No one asked
The
me.
servants.
Oh, it's about that. Of course it is.
It's about respect for other people.
Whatever it starts off as, it always comes back to that.
No, it doesn't. Well, why wouldn't it? Now, am I supposed to take it lying down? The fact that my sister, you certainly wouldn't, has cheated me out of what is rightly half mine.
No.
You're going to have to let this go, Marion, for your own health. It's becoming an obsession, and it was never rightly half yours. It was entirely at Uncle James's disposal who he left the estate to, and we all know why he did.
I shall get married. I shall get married.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
And I shall have a child. Yes, really, a son.
Congratulations.
And one day he
You
will...
better look sharp about it, Marion.
You think I have no life outside these four walls?
Because you're no spring chicken.
Oh, you are sowing the wind hourly, daily, minute by minute, and you will reap the whirlwind.
Where are you going? You're not going to get married right now, are you, Marion? Good heavens, there's no stopping her. We better get the banns read.
You can sneer all you like, but one day I shall have a son, and he will have a greater claim to Shibden than you, and then we shall see.
You're going to give birth to spite me. Well, I do hope this husband is someone worthy of marrying my sister and fathering a Lister.
Here will be a Lister. Rachel, I'd like you to pack my imperial. I'm going to stay with Mr. and Mrs. Dyson in Market Wheaton for a few weeks. I'll write ahead and explain.
Now, Mum.
Yes, now!
You know what? This nonsense with Marion always annoys me. She always has to argue about anything and everything. I often think if you stuck Marion in a room on her own, within 10 minutes she'd be arguing with herself.
So do you think, did she cultivate that masculinity then? Would she have even called it that or understood herself in that way? Sort of being a bit of a...
Yeah, she
bit
did
of a
use the word
man's
masculine.
woman? She did.
She did. She liked, I mean, the idea of being called a gentleman rather than a fellow.
Right.
She didn't like the idea of being called a fellow because it'd been too vulgar.
Mm-hmm.
She often talked about her man's being soft, gentleman-like.
That's
softly
right.
Gentleman-like.
Yeah, softly gentleman-like.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that seems really, really interesting because the whole scenario around Sister Marion's relationship with Anne is very, very complex. It seems like it's fairly flippant, but actually it wasn't. And it's all rooted in the fact that Anne Lister inherited the estate in 1826. And so, you know, Marion was forever, this was a bone of contention throughout their relationship. But, I mean, when Anne Walker actually moved into Shibden Hall, that kind of softened to a degree, and the father died. And in fact, when Marion Lister leaves Shibden Hall, it's quite sad. And Anne asks her to stay. I think it's a typical sisterly relationship, but poor Marion, she was just could never compete with Anne Lister.
And why was it Anne that got the estate then? Was there a reason behind that it went to her?
She was so capable. I mean, she moved into Shibden Hall in 1815 and virtually started running the estate because her father just wasn't able to do it. They weren't natural estate managers, the Listers. And when she came, she was a whirlwind. She just took control and proved to Uncle James that she was the one to manage the estate. And she was very, very capable. And he recognised that.
I think her brother died, which is why she came in line. But I think as well, she was a great player. And I think from an early age, she was absolutely adamant that she was going to prove to them that she could do this, and she was absolutely determined to inherit it.
And so, do you think that she was able to behave the way she did and dress the way she did, obviously because she had these varying levels of privilege and class? If she hadn't have had those, do you think that she would have been one of the female husbands or passing women that we can read about, sort of from the 1700s onwards, or?
I don't think we should overestimate her wealth. You know, she was not. She was always. When she was younger, she was poor. She never had any money,
and that followed her.
She was always dependent on her aunt and her uncle to give her a few shillings. You know, she wasn't overprivileged. You know, she was not aristocratic. she wasn't really landed gentry. She was more like in that
kind of minor gentry.
Well, the kind of a class that doesn't really exist anymore, the yeomanry. She was kind of in that. By a lot of people's standards, she was well off. I'm sorry, I don't want to make it sound like she was poor, but you know, she wasn't overprivileged. I think she forged that identity for herself through a sheer intelligence, a profound intelligence. She was phenomenally intelligent, Anne Lister, and she was phenomenally. I think she had a really healthy sense of her own self-worth, and I think that's what allowed her to put herself out there in the world in the way that she did. That she was able to be utterly truthful about who she was, and she didn't. She was able to look at the world as it was with its odd social mores and say, well, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to, you know, she was able to be. That's why I personally find her so uplifting and so inspirational, is that she had this absolute strength and knowledge of who she was, and she had this ferocious intelligence that went with it that people just couldn't argue with her. She would run rings around people. You know, she was always 3 thoughts ahead of anyone else in any given conversation, in any given situation that she found herself in. So if anybody said to her, I don't think you should dress like that, she'd explain to them really clearly why she should. And by the end of the conversation, they'd be thinking, maybe I'll dress like that as well. You know, she would. It's what always comes back to me is her intelligence. She had this brilliant mind, I think.
Yeah, and determination of character, which to me, you know, it cuts through everything. It cuts through class. It cuts through, you know, cultural restraints. She had that inner strength, that inner ability to look at herself and say, this is how I want to live, and I'm not going to separate out these public and private spheres. She did that in the diaries, interestingly. She had the play in hand and she had the code.
Yeah.
So, but she, you know, the code gave her that kind of emotional freedom to be able to say what she wanted uncensored.
And she was remarkably consistent throughout her life as well.
Absolutely.
What always blows me away when I look at the journal is from probably the early 1820s right through to when she died in 1840, her handwriting is so consistent. You can see it develops, you can see it alters, it changes, but on the whole, it's so recognisably her. There's this extraordinary consistency, and I think that typifies her.
And you mentioned that she's a complex character, you know, and obviously people are saying now that the series is out, you must have seen it, there's commentary about, oh, she's the hero of this tale, but she was a raging capitalist industrialist, she did X, Y, Z. I mean, did you feel a sense of responsibility to you're heroising this woman? There aren't many lesbians on screen at all. Did you feel a responsibility about how you presented those subtleties?
She's complex, Anne Lister. She's as Strand said, she's Marmite. You either love her or you just don't get her. And it's interesting. I find it. I thought this today actually. Helena Whitbread and Jill Liddington, who are you know, the 2 academics who've written about her are both really, so they're real socialists, both of them. You know, they're not just passive socialists, they're really
I don't think there are passive socialists, are there?
So it's interesting that they've both, you know, chosen her as their life's work. You know, as a dramatist, I have a slightly different attitude. You know, I think, you know, people are interesting, and you know, the more complex they are, the more interesting they become. So I've kind of embraced that side of her because I think she was a product of her time. Yeah. You know, it's unfair to judge her by our standards. You know, if she was alive now, I think it's interesting to think, you know, what would she be? You know, would she still have those capitalist attitudes? She would, yeah. But you know, I think it's unfair to criticise people by our standards. I think she's complex, but for me, that's what's fascinating about her. There's nothing sentimental or easy and or romantic. That's why somebody said to me the other day, "Why don't you write about the ladies of Llangollen?" I don't find them remotely interesting.
They just go about their business, bit of gardening.
Yeah, you know, bless them. How marvellous, but no drama, you know.
For lesbians, I mean, that's rare as well. So, yeah. Yeah, so, and who would she be today, do you think?
Well, I think she'd either be sorting Brexit out a fuck of a lot better than anyone else. I think she'd either be a big CEO of a big organisation, she'd be the Prime Minister, she'd be
I think she'd be
doing something at a very high level.
She would. I think she'd be
be
a world-renowned consultant surgeon.
Right. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
You know, discovering new things about the body because of her obsession with you know, comparative anatomy.
I mean, there's so many things she was fascinated by, though. You know, she might have been presenting documentaries about travel, you know. There's so many things she was passionate. She might have been a writer, you know. I mean, that was her ambition, was to become a travel writer. She was hoping to earn money from publishing about... That's where they were, when she died. You know, they were going to such remote places that she was hoping to write about where she'd been and to publish.
Right.
But of course, all the time here, she was writing this amazing document that we have today. You know, she was producing her magnum opus, you know, she was producing her opus unknowingly. But, you know, this is the other question. You know, people ask, was she aware? Was she writing those diaries for somebody to read eventually? And that's a debate we have, you know, we have conversations about that quite often. You know, the level of importance she gave to her diaries was phenomenal, even down to the quality of paper that she chose. And occasionally, you know, she would read sections of the diaries out, like she was quite proud of the diaries. So it kind of poses questions that, you know, just how did she ever intend these diaries to be discovered or not?
Well, someone posed a question, because on Twitter, actually, when people were debating this event tonight, and someone actually asked whether, did Anne Lister share her code with other people?
Well, of course, with Mariana Lawton. Yeah, and...
Not Anne Walker.
Not Anne Walker. There's no need for it, really, was there? They were living together and just being a couple. And I suppose it's like, you know, if your partner, do you have your partner's Twitter account or Facebook account? You don't need to, because you talk to them all the time. So I can kind of... But interestingly, Anne Walker started writing a diary herself in 1834, which we've yet to discover.
Oh, wow.
Which would be really, really fantastic to find.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yes.
That's interesting.
And what happened to her? Because she outlived Anne Lister, is that right?
Yeah. So Anne Walker brought Anne's body back from Kutaisi via Moscow. Gosh. I think she took the body to Moscow, and it was in Moscow where it was embalmed.
Right.
And then she brought it back to England, and she was buried in Halifax Parish Church. Anne Walker then, because they'd exchanged, they'd written their wills to one another in one another's favour, and inherited Shibden.
Oh, right.
But then her family decided she was of unsound mind, and she was removed from the Red Room. Those of you who've been to Shibden, one of the bedrooms you'll know is called the Red Room, and she shut herself in there, and they got Dr. Belcom, so he came over from York, and they got a constable. They had to remove the door physically because she'd locked herself in there, and when they went in there was a lot of blood in the room, so we don't know what that was about. There's an account, a written account of that. And she went over to York with Dr. Belcom, and she was in Dr. Belcom's care for a while. But then she did return to...
She returned to Cliff Hill, which was good. So she didn't die in an asylum. And Dr. Belcom stayed true to his word, in a way. He looked after her and made sure she got the care she deserved. But I think, you know, we often talk about the strength that Anne Walker must have summoned to bring that body back from Moscow.
Oh,
and,
hark!
Gentleman Jack.
Someone's left their phone on, and it's playing Gentleman Jack. Yes. And that is our cue, I do believe, to bring on. We've got room on our stage for yet more extraordinary women from the north. I think there must be something in the water up there. But we have O'Hooley and Tidow with us tonight as well, somewhere, lurking back there. The beauty of the crowd. So, welcome. Thank you for being here and, telling us another part of the story. So, how did you get involved with it all? When did you write your famous song? Tell us how it began.
Well, it all started in about 2011. And me and Belinda were at a friend's house for lunch, Viviana, and she was interviewed for the documentary at the time with Sue Perkins. Did anybody watch that? And we just said, "Oh, what are you up to?" And she said, "Oh, I've just been interviewed for this documentary about this incredible woman called Anne Lister. Have you heard of her?" And we were like, "No." Even though we live in Huddersfield, which is only over the hill from Halifax. But we said, "She sounds intriguing, tell us about her." And she said that she was this amazing, intelligent, outgoing woman that was really different for her time. And she said, in essence, she was the first modern lesbian. And of course, our ears pricked up. And she told us that she'd written her life in code, and that the coded parts of the diaries were about her affairs, basically, love letters. And we both got like a tingle at the same time, like this would make an incredible song. And we only ever get that like once every decade.
Still waiting for my tingle.
Thanks.
Your private life's your own, really.
Yeah, you can go off someone. So we looked at each other and said, "We've got to write about her," and we sort of filed it away. And when we went away on a songwriting holiday, we started writing about her, and it was the most fun, amazing sort of experience of writing a song that we've ever had together. Because she's just like, like we can all agree, she's so interesting and so complex and inspiring that we just loved writing about her. And that was, 8 years ago.
And so you've been playing the song about that time then?
Yeah, so it came out on our album The Fragile in 2012, and it's really our hit. Because, I mean, in the folk world, that's sort of putting it loosely, really. And we always play it at our shows because people really like the song. And you kind of get used to playing it, and we love telling people about Anne Lister. And at that time, people just didn't know about her, and so it's fantastic to spread the word. Little did we know that at our gig at Hebden Bridge, Sally Wainwright was going to come over to Heidi, and not just buy a CD.
She did.
She's saying she bought two.
She did.
She also asked, well, what did she say?
Yeah.
Could reenact it now.
Yes, please do.
Where are the stars?
So I'm like,
Would you like a t-shirt?
You know your song? You know that song?
Yeah.
Can you use it on my show?
So were you fangirling here? You're like starstruck with them. Yeah.
Can I use your song? You know that song you sing?
Are you Princess Diana? Because the way you're doing it
it's very demure. Very demure.
Quite demure.
Yeah.
It wasn't that demure.
Is it not? Well, you do it then.
Just said, "I am Sally. Can I use your song for my drama?" It's like, yeah, go on then.
You didn't need a bit of time to think about it then. You just went, yeah. Go on.
3 seconds.
Yeah,
You said you'd bring me back in about 3 weeks.
In about 3 seconds. Wow.
Yeah.
And so what's that been like? Like, how's the reception changed? You said you played the song at first. I mean, was it well received in that world? You know, you're two lesbian women yourself playing a song about lesbians. I know the folk scene is friendly. Has the reception you've got for that song changed?
Well, overall, the reception was always really strong for that song. People we didn't really notice any kind of raised eyebrows or anything. People just really liked the song. Some people didn't know it was about a woman
Like my dad said, I love that song, Jack the Lad.
Just listen a little bit more closely.
But then, once the show was on, it actually, when it came out in America, that's when it started to really filter through. And our song started to get an awful lot more hits on Spotify, YouTube. We started getting people messaging us from America, talking about the song, saying they couldn't get it out of their heads. And then when it came and hit the TV screens in Britain, that's when kind of it just went completely off the scale. And our shop on our website exploded because we service the shop. We, you might sell a CD every, 6 weeks, but we were selling, it just kept going bing, 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 bing. And so we've spent the last few months stuffing envelopes.
We had to get the cats in to help.
Yeah. And all our shows have sold out, which is amazing. So thank you very much. But really, we're just so proud of Anne Lister and Anne Lister getting out there and her story being told, and what a fantastic show that Sally and Anne and everyone involved have created. And it's great to be part of it. Yeah.
To add to that, I think the song has added a real extra element of something special to the show. It's just, when you hear that sound kicking in at the end of the episode, it always makes me
So did you know the song before, or were you out researching?
Yeah, I think through Helena Whitbread, I think she said years ago, said to me, there's a song. So I googled it and watched the video with the banana. So I knew it was out there, and but it does really add something special, I think, at the end.
There's a very expensive video on YouTube.
The official video.
It says the official video, and it took us about 5 minutes to do it. And it involves bananas. So, if you've not seen it, make sure you do.
And did you realise? Did you realise how big it was going to be? I mean, HBO. Did you foresee how big it was going to be?
Anne kept telling us, didn't you?
Did I?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember her saying.
I think we thought, well, it's the end credit song, so
no one watched
people don't listen to the end credit songs, do they? And you normally sort of flick on to the next thing. So we were really just totally taken aback by the response we did get to the song.
But it wasn't just the end credits. I mean, we used it to different degrees. I mean, in episode 1, there's like at least 60 seconds or so.
Yeah. Well, I think we just undermined, I guess we're a bit, being on the folk scene and stuff. you kind of get used to being sort of quite below radar, so you don't expect anything like that.
And you become modest because it's not, they don't approve. The folk scene is a modest, under the radar scene, really. And Anne Lister, I mean, she shows us, don't be modest, shine brightly. And for women as well, sometimes it's hard to shine brightly and to say, well, yeah, it's been absolutely huge.
Did you get to hang out on set at all? How much involvement did you have with the making of the series?
Well, I was the chief advisor.
Were you the intimacy advisor?
All the scenes. For all the scenes that involve Saran, I was sort of the main advisor, and then Heidi advised the scenes for Sophie. So it was,
it wasn't Ita.
No, it wasn't Ita O'Brien. It was us.
Wow.
No, we did go on set, and it was really interesting actually. It was Anne Choma that said, come along to the set and see what happens. And we'd not been part of anything like that before. And we realised just how kind of intricate and complicated it is to create these scenes, and how incredible to be actually filming at Shibden Hall, to actually be there where she lived, walking, you know, the rooms that she was in, and it was incredible. We didn't see any ghosts either, but it gave us a real feel for how TV is made, and I think it's really interesting and really cold. And
I just said how gorgeous it was on summer.
I know, we've got two different stories going on here.
Well, it's the last bit,
Oh yeah, that was a very cold day.
It was like November by then, though, wasn't it?
And how resilient everybody is. The actors are having to repeat scenes quite a lot, and to get all the different angles and to get what everybody wants. And they're in these dresses and things, and it's freezing. And
they had quite a lot of layers on there,
didn't they?
Yeah. Our list had a lot of layers.
Well, I didn't have my thermal knickers on.
And I think just we were both really taken aback by the contrast between how sort of quickly we gobble box sets these days. Like, you know, we binge watch something in a weekend. Actually, the incredible amount of work that goes into making a series like this. We just feel like we've learned so much, and we sort of appreciate television in a different way now.
Yeah, we do.
It's hard to imagine looking at those clips tonight, you know, having been on set. Just, can you imagine all the crew behind those cameras, sound guys, lighting guys, and yet all you see is the scene. And yet in Shibden Hall on any one day when we were filming, we could have maybe, 60, 70 members of crew in there. It's quite phenomenal. And then what you see is this amazing end result of this just wonderful acting.
And it's so cinematic. And I think, you know, as a lesbian, like watching that, I'm sure we were all just thinking, oh yes, you know, why shouldn't we have these gorgeous Pride and Prejudice scenes as well? You know, why shouldn't we have the drone camera sweeping over and the beautiful romantic kiss at the end? And I think, you know, that was all really special. I mean, was it big budget? Did you really go for it? You know, and what was the difference with having HBO on side? Did that make that more possible? Or?
I mean, it was huge, the difference in the budget. I mean, I've never worked with a budget on that scale before.
Right.
So it was, I mean, it meant things like the first clip that you saw with the high flyer going down the street, we used a Russian arm, which is a camera that's on a crane that's on the back of an SUV. So they use them a lot on Top Gear. So when you've got a car racing around a massive racing circuit, you've got an SUV following the vehicle with a crane, so the crane has got a camera on the end, can, you know, move around the car and go anywhere. And it's just a very expensive piece of kit that you couldn't normally afford. So it's the difference between, you know, a more traditional way of, you know, you'd have a camera with the carriage coming towards you. So to actually be moving with the carriage, it's expensive, and it's time consuming means more expense as well. So it's things like that, and for me that was very important. We had Steadicam on set every day, which normally you wouldn't have. You'd say, I need the Steadicam for this day, and this day. We had the Steadicam available all the time, and again that was really, Steadicam is where you've got a camera that's attached to a man. It wears a body rig, and he can follow Saran around at like 20 miles an hour, you know, or however fast she's walking. And again, we just felt that was really important to capture that energy, that physical energy. And again, that was something that we could only do with a big budget, where you've got that bit of kit available to you all the time. So it made a massive difference. It made a huge difference. The budget that we had. It was. As I say, I've never worked with a budget that big before. It was a real. It was brilliant.
And so great that it happened for this story. You know, why not? Absolutely brilliant. Did you? Clearly, people have been so hungry for any kind of representation, and the response that it's had. Did you anticipate that? Did you feel a sense of the world was on your shoulders? You're representing a group and a love and relationships that are so often not represented?
No, I didn't. I didn't know how well it was going to be received. You never know how well something's going to be received. You make everything in good faith, and you make everything to the best of your ability, and you make everything at that level. I'm obsessive. I'm obsessive about getting everything right. At that level, you tend to be surrounded by other people who are you're working with, Anne talks about 60, 70 people. They're all very talented people. So you're working at a very high level with people who are absolutely determined to get things absolutely right. People are really meticulous about how they achieve things. All shows are made like that, and you never know how well they're going to be received or not. I've written things that have just been complete turkeys, and it's heartbreaking because I've never made anything and not put my heart and soul into it. So, you hope against hope that it's going to be successful and people are going to just get it. I remember when we were filming Happy Valley, Sarah Lancashire on set one day, she just said to me, I hope people get this. And now it's inconceivable that they wouldn't, but when you're making things, you really never know. And with Gentleman Jack, we had no idea. You never know how it's going to be received. You've got a fantastic performance. You've got these amazing actors, this amazing crew. You know everybody's done the best, but you never, ever know how it's going to be received. So the response has been heartwarming, absolutely overwhelming.
And fantastic that we felt that we did get it right for the LGBT community. And the outpouring of love, from everybody around the world has just been phenomenal. And all the research and all the work that went into producing the TV character that is Anne Lister, taken from the diaries, it proves that we got it right.
And what next? Are you busily transcribing more? What next? Yeah. I know it's been commissioned for a second series.
Yeah. So Anne's transcribed through to.
We're going well. We're coming towards mid 1836. But it's
so we finished in approximately Easter 1834. But these are approximate dates because there's poetic license going backwards and forwards with time because I have to construct a narrative out of something that isn't essentially a dramatic narrative. So I've written episode 1 of series 2.
Wow.
And I'm just working on the scene breakdown for episode 2 at the moment.
Wow. So we've got more treats in store. And Anne Lister is going to continue to live on. And I think it's about time that ladies like us went off and had some Madeira sipping wine or something like that. And we're going to end the evening with a set from Belinda and Heidi, who I think may do a certain song, or they may not.
You're right. She just got to plug the keyboard in. It doesn't play as well without power. So we're delighted to be here at the Old Vic. It's an amazing building. We've never been before. And so such an honour to be here. You what, sorry? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. It's amazing honour to be here with Sally and Anne and Finn and all you fantastic people who clearly have just fallen in love with Anne Lister and Gentleman Jack as much as the rest of the nation. So we're going to sing you some songs about some extraordinary women that we have come across over the years. And we're going to start with something quite close to home for us, because we live in Huddersfield, in a place called Golka, in the Colne Valley. And it's a real mix of industrial and rural. And you see a lot of different characters in and amongst the Colne Valley. It's quite a magical place, really. And we've spotted a couple of local characters, a couple of women, that kind of live on the fringes of society. They seem a little bit different, and they've really caught our attention. And we're going to sing about them in this song. This is Colne Valley Hearts. Wasn't an easy birth,
with me rugged, shoulders broad, ready to carry, ready to work, foreign on me tongue, dialect discern, spot the incomer miles away. When I turned up, knowing no one, when I showed up, knowing no one. Come Valley hearts, necklace of red. Come Valley hearts, hand over heart over hand, cold hands, warm hearts, lighting up the cook tonight, lighting up the cook tonight. Back at Dam I saw her, translucent barely there, cradle in a clutch of carrier bags, lullabies sung to her by the cenotaph, smokes from inside out, furrows deep as valley sides, bejeweled with the kindest eyes. She has the kindest eyes. Come Valley hearts, necklace of red. Come Valley hearts, hand over heart over hand, cold hands, warm hearts, lighting up the cook tonight, lighting up the cook tonight. Smog-stained stone makes us know we're home. Home. Come Valley hearts, necklace of red. Come Valley hearts, hand over heart over hand, cold hands, warm hearts, lighting up the cook tonight, lighting up the cook tonight. We're lighting up the cook tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to ask you a very personal question now. And it's something that's divided society, really. And it's been delayed again, and it's awful, really. But does anybody in here identify as a Morris dancer?
I've got one.
One person, right. I think we're going to have one, Heidi. Yeah.
Maybe Anna could organise it.
She could, actually. We're going to have a Morris Pride in Bristol. You know, it's okay to shake your bells. The reason we're asking is because me and Heidi have written a song about Morris dancing. Please don't leave. And it's about a woman Morris dancer by the name of Daisy Dakin, and she was an extraordinary, ordinary woman. She was born, she was around during the First World War, and it was her dream, her ambition to travel to Belgium and France to teach the war-weary and the shell-shocked soldiers how to Morris dance.
We know what you're thinking. Hadn't they suffered enough? But actually, the thing is that she was ahead of her time, because shell shock, we now call it post-traumatic stress disorder. And one of the great ways of helping people with PTSD is community dance. So there she was stood, she wasn't the tallest of women, so she stood on a chair to conduct all these hundreds of men Morris dancing. And I suppose at the very least, she gave them a lot of joy and a lot of laughter at a time when it must have been very, very dark and very hard for those people. And they all fell in love with her, and we fell in love with her story. And also that real spirit, the spirit of the small, and the fact that, like so many extraordinary women, not many people have heard about them because they're not in the history books, funny enough. And we thought we'd have to correct that by writing a song about her. So this is Daisy Day King's song, and it's named after her nickname, which is the Pixie.
Weary and broken, just about dead, limbs stitched clumsily with needle and thread, glinting and splintered, fragile and young. It's 1917, and I'm done. Small like a sparrow, wiry and taut, lion-hearted Daisy, hunting recruits, the fallen, the injured, the dog-beaten low. Teach me, Daisy, what you know. Daisy, oh my Daisy, dancer in war. Daisy, you're my Daisy, oh, knitting bones back to before. Dark-eyed, glowing, fresh from the pit, raw-boned, hungry, ready for it, thrashing compulsive, wheeling it on, the dance of the bloody, still matching strong, matching strong. Daisy, oh my Daisy, dancer in war. Daisy, you're my Daisy, oh, knitting bones back to before. Daisy Dakin marking the measure, counting the tempo, holding together. Thousands collide in the tango of twisting, the waltz of the winner, the terror of losing. Giant swoop of tiny feathers, the greatness of small. the greatness of small, the roar of a kitten, the greatness of small. Daisy, oh my Daisy, dancer in war. Daisy, Daisy, you're my Daisy. Oh, knitting bones back to before. Oh, Daisy, where did you go? You might think that she was born on two wheels, Mum and Dad behind her and the stars at her heels. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. Born into nothing, a shy awkward lass. Coordination, St. Vitus her dance. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. I will not lead a life of disillusionment and disappointment. Peril, heartbeats to the pedal, like the salmon has to leap. Not about the medals, her feet flat to the metal. Push and push and push, repeat. Mother, worker, wife, champion on side, like a curly crop, tightly organised. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. Sprockets and mudguards, Charlie's a guy, dancing through the ginnels, the queen of British tie. Never looking back, I'm gonna make me mark. Head down, eyes forward, pulsing, sprinting to find the sweet spot. Beryl, her heart beats to the pedal, like the salmon has to leap. Not about the medals, her feet flat to the metal. Push and push and push, repeat. Come on, Beryl. You can do it. Even though you're 8 months pregnant, you can do it. Would you like a vegan sausage roll? No? Hot pie, please. I will not lead a life of disillusionments and disappointment. Beryl, her heart beats to the pedal, like the salmon has to leap. It's not about the medals, her feet flat to the metal. Push and push and push, repeat. Push and push and push, repeat. We wrote this next song for our feminist collective, Coven. Has anyone seen us in Coven? So Coven are me and Heidi, Lady Maisery, and Grace Petrie. If you've not heard of those people, do check them out. And it's a song called Woman in Space, and it's about what women are, not what they're not. It's about what women can be, not what they can't be. Because if you give a woman enough space, she can do anything. All right.
Who'd argue with that?
Somebody did argue with that, actually, didn't they?
Yeah, it was at a folk club recently. Belinda said that. And this man went, except for Brexit. Let's see how the men do, eh? There's still time.
Anyway, back to Valentina Tereshkova, because this song was inspired by the first woman in space, and try and fit that into a song.
I am the keeper of secrets. I keep my back to the wall. I am their mother and their daughter. They think I know nothing at all.
Assertion is aggressive. Ambition a barren place. Pink is our prison. Language haunts us subjugate. A right to education, like fearless Malala.
A woman in space. We've been choke chained and muted, fitted with concrete shoes, wings clipped and tethered, assembled to be consumed. When we look at Earth from above, swimming in the silent sea, there are no borders or limits. A pale blue dot is all we see. Holding it in tension, like Valentina Tereshkova. In space. 5, 4, 3, 2. refusal to surrender, just like Rosa Parks. A woman in space.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got one more song for you. Well, it is our last song. Our last song. And before we sing it, we'd like to say some special thank yous to, firstly, to Anna Rutherford, who has organised this event tonight and done such a fantastic job. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, to our wonderful host for tonight, Finn Mackay. Thank you very much, Finn. To Sally Wainwright and Anne Choma. And then to all the team and volunteers here at Bristol Old Vic, thank you to Sam on sound and to Bryony, who's been looking after us today, and everyone else that's made it possible tonight. Thank you very much. Just to give you a heads up, me and Heidi are going to be touring. We're going to be doing the hashtag Gentleman Jack tour. And we have just finished booking it, and only one date is on sale, and it just went on sale a few days ago, and that is St George's in Bristol. And that's on Friday, the 28th of February. So you're getting to know about it first, all right? So come and see us. We'd love to see you at that, the Friday the 28th of February, and it's just gone on sale. Well, we're going to finish off with a song about another extraordinary woman, and Heidi's going to tell you about her.
Yeah. Has anybody seen the film Oranges and Sunshine? Yeah. That's about the controversial child migration scheme that happened in Britain right up until the 1970s, where children, sometimes as young as 3 years old, were shipped away from their parents, away from their guardians, many of them orphans, to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the Rhodesia, and they were sent there alone, not knowing where they were going or what was going to happen to them. And they were told that they were going there for better lives, for oranges and sunshine. And it's a really terrible part of British history, actually, that's been very much covered up. And it was an amazing social worker from Nottingham called Margaret Humphreys who uncovered this and went out there and did a lot of work to help these former child migrants talk about what had happened to them, and for some of them to find some of their families. And when they went out there, they weren't given better lives. A lot of them were put into institutions, into child labour, and suffered terrible abuse. And only very recently, me and Belinda were part of a big show called The Ballads of Child Migration, and we did a little tour last year with that. It was an incredible, moving thing to be part of. And since then, a number of these former child migrants that suffered this terrible abuse have received some compensation at last from the government. And very recently, the British government did apologise and take responsibility for their part in this terrible, atrocity. So we felt that we really wanted to write a song about this. And it's also a lullaby, really, to the adopted and anybody that's adopted a child or had to give a child up for adoption. It's called Two Mothers.
As I lay gently down to sleep, I hear my mother's voice lilting to me. Unexpected child was I upon a young girl. Through her tears she sang me farewell. Come sing a song for the mothers who held you in their arms when you were a child, who sacrificed their dreams for ours, taught us to fly, soothing our fears with her lullaby. Wrapped up in mother's crocheted shawl, I crossed a faraway sea to a world turned around. New hands, a bottle, kind eyes, and a strange lullaby. My new mother answered my cries. Ooh, come sing a song for the mothers who held you in their arms when you were a child, who sacrificed their dreams for ours and taught us to fly, soothing our fears with sweet lullaby. And time, like the tide, she ebbs and flows, and in my arms I cradle a child
forest green, whilst mine a cornflower blue. Perhaps they're a keepsake from you. Oh, come sing a song for the mothers who held you in their arms when you were a child, who sacrificed their dreams for ours and taught us to fly. Soothing our fears with her lullaby. Soothing our fears with sweet Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, go on then. Businesswoman, entrepreneur, landowner, rural gentlewoman, traveller, mountaineer, writer, diarist of 5 million words. 5 million exquisite words, a sixth of them written in a fantastic code. Who was this woman? What was the name she was given behind her back? Well, it can only be the woman that we've all come here for tonight. Gentleman Jack!
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack, a Yorkshire lady of renown. Ever so fine, won't toe the line. Speak her name, gentleman frown. Shipped and all, she had them all. The fairest sex fell under a spell. Dapper and bright, she held them tight. Handsome man seduced them well. Gentleman Jack, oh gentleman Jack, watch your back, you're under attack. The husbands are coming, you better start running, for nobody likes a Jack the lass. Jack the lass, Jack the lass, no one likes a Jack the lass. The code is cracked, your back's a pack, the knives are out for Gentleman Jack. Ooh, 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 ooh. She played the fellas at the game. Sharp of mind, she's one of a kind. Devilish ways that men couldn't tame. Hidden away, revealed today. Loaded words in diaries found. Once exposing a baffling code. Lusty letters all over bound. Gentleman Jack, oh gentleman Jack, watch your back, you're under attack. The husbands are coming, you better start running, for nobody likes a Jack the lass. Jack the lass, Jack the lass, no one likes a Jack the lass. The code is cracked, your back's a pack, the knives are out for Gentleman Jack. writing that in my diary. Okay, we're going to split you up into 2 groups because we'd love you to sing along. Everyone to the left of Heidi Tidow is in Team Lister. And everybody to the right of Heidi Tidow is in Team Walker. Team Lister, you with me? You're going to sing along. It goes like this. Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack. Try that. Brilliant.
Team Walker, she's Gentleman Jack behind their backs. Sing it with me. She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Team Lister, here we go. Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman
Louder!
Jack.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack.
She's Gentleman Jack behind their backs.
Behind her back, she's Gentleman Jack. She's Gentleman Jack. She's Gentleman Jack. Gentleman Jack, oh Gentleman Jack. Watch your back, you're under attack. The husbands are coming, you better start running. And nobody likes a Jack the Lass. Jack the Lass, Jack the Lass. No one likes a Jack the Lass. The code is packed, your bags are packed. The knives are out for Gentleman Jack. Thank you!
Thank you very much.